All right, today we're going to talk about unlocking one of the simplest but most powerful features in all of Terraform, variables. If you've ever found yourself manually editing your code for different environments, you know the pain. This one's for you. Seriously, are you just tired of digging through your code, finding that one little value you need to change, and then having to do it all over again for staging and then again for production? It's a huge frustration, but believe me, there's a much, much better way. So let's kick things off by talking about what I like to call the hard coding headache. It's a problem pretty much all of us run into when we're starting out. And, it can cause some pretty serious issues down the line. Just think about it for a second. You've got your configuration for your dev environment. Now, to get that to production, you copy the file, you hunt down every single value that needs to be different, like the server size or maybe the region, and you change it by hand. It's slow, it's tedious, and honestly, it's so easy to make one tiny typo that just brings everything crashing down. So how do we get rid of this headache? Well, that brings us to the real hero of today's story, Terraform Variables. They are the elegant, simple solution to this whole messy problem. So what exactly is a Terraform variable? Well, at its core, it's just an input you pass to your configuration. And the most important part of that definition is right at the end, without altering the source code. That's the magic. It lets you create this flexible template one time, and then you can change how it behaves from the outside. A really great way to think about this is like filling out a form. Your Terraform code is that standardized form. The form itself, all its questions, its structure, that never changes. Variables are just the blank spaces on that form. When you want to deploy for development, you fill in the blanks with your dev answers. For production, use the exact same form, but you just fill in the blanks with prod answers. It's simple, it's clean, and it's totally reusable. Okay, so we know what they are, but let's get into why they are an absolute game changer for anyone doing infrastructure as code. This is where it really gets good. First off, you get to write your code once and then use it everywhere. This is that whole don't repeat yourself idea in action. And what does that mean for you? Well, you've got way less code to maintain, which just slashes your code duplication. And when you're not copying and pasting all the time, you naturally cut down on those dangerous manual errors. Best of all, it suddenly becomes super easy to manage all your different environments from one single consistent code base. Let's look at a really clear example. On the left, you've got the old way, two separate files or at least two different chunks of code with the instance type hard-coded for dev and prod. But look at the right. One beautiful clean line. Instance type is now just set to var.instanceType. This one file can now spin up a tiny T2 micro or a giant M5.large just by passing in a different value to that one variable. So much cleaner. Okay, so you're on board. You're probably wondering, how do I actually use them? Well, let's do a quick flyby of the most common variable types you're going to see. We're not going to do a super deep dive here, just enough to get you started. You're mainly going to deal with these three. A string is just text, right? It's perfect for things like an instance name or an AWS region. A number is, well, it's a number. Great for stuff like disk size or how many servers you want to create. And then you have a list, which is a collection of values. And this is super useful for things like providing a list of security group IDs you want to attach. Now, let's talk about a really useful feature that makes your configurations way more robust and friendly to use. Let's talk about setting default values. The best way to think about a default value is as your safety net. It's the value Terraform will just automatically use if you don't happen to give it a different one. This means you don't have to provide a value for every single variable every single time you run your code. And this gives you two huge benefits. First, it makes the variable optional, which really simplifies things for anyone who's using your configuration. And second, it gives you a safe, sensible starting point. For example, you could set the default AWS region to US East 1, so you don't have to specify it over and over again. All right, you've got the concepts down. Before we wrap this up, let me give you a couple of pro tips to help you get started on the right foot and maybe avoid a few common mistakes. First, just start simple. Seriously, don't try to turn everything into a variable all at once. Pick one or two obvious hard-coded values, like an instance type or a resource name, and just convert those first. And second, don't go overboard. It's tempting to make everything a variable, but if a value is truly a constant that's never going to change, it's totally okay to leave it as is. The goal here is clarity, not complexity. If you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this.
Variables are what let a single, well-written Terraform configuration become flexible enough to work in dozens of different situations, from a developer's laptop all the way up to a massive production environment.
So I'm going to leave you with a question to think about. Go look at one of your own projects right now. What's the very first hard-coded value that you're going to turn into a variable? Start right there, and you'll be well on your way to writing cleaner, safer, and way more powerful infrastructure code.